The Artifact. Chapter 2. The Architecture of Fear.
The chaos above was a symphony of breaking glass and muffled shouts. Agent Vance had sealed the vault door, but the 10-ton steel barrier felt laughably thin against the sudden, aggressive silence that followed the initial alarm. Elias, despite the adrenaline surge, was still fixed on the Codex Somnus. The pulsing script was mesmerizing, and he fought the urge to touch the surface. He knew, with a certainty that chilled him to the core, that the intrusion upstairs was not a coincidence, it was a direct consequence of opening the book. "We have 90 seconds before the secondary airlock engages," Vance clipped, her voice tight but controlled, her gun aimed steadily at the vault entrance. "Tell me about the text, Doctor. Is there anything that references remote access or psychic disruption?" Elias frantically flipped through a few pages. The script defied quick translation. It wasn't written to be read linearly. It was designed to be experienced. The text didn't describe dreams. It seemed to describe the infrastructure behind dreaming. "It is a cartography of the subconscious, Agent. Look at this diagram." Elias pointed to a complex diagram that covered an entire spread. It depicted a central labyrinthine structure from which dozens of fine, thread-like lines radiated outward, seemingly connected to small, labeled points. The language, this Aramaic form, it was used by the Mithraic mystery cults in the 2nd century CE. They believed the mind was a temple, and sleep was the one time the divine messenger could enter. These threads, they are not paths, they are conduits. And these points, they are individual minds, a network. A sudden, sharp sound, not a siren, but a metallic, grating tear, came from the ventilation shaft above them. Dust and fine concrete particulate rained down. Vance swore under her breath. "They are coming in through the ducts. They knew the floor plan. They knew the HVAC system." She lowered her weapon, recognizing the futility of aiming at a source she couldn't see. "What is the central structure?" Elias leaned in, translating the glyphs next to the central diagram. He frowned, his brow furrowed in genuine terror. "It is translated simply as the generator, but the subheading, it's a warning." "The warning, Doctor, now." "It says, to find the generator is to awaken the sleeper, and the sleeper is the true keeper of the code." As he spoke, a figure dropped lightly from the shaft, landing soundlessly on the floor just feet from the pedestal. He was tall, dressed in matte black tactical gear, his face obscured by a seamless fiber-optic mask that reflected only the emergency lights. He moved with a dancer's grace and an assassin's economy of motion. The figure didn't glance at Vance or her drawn weapon. His eyes, or where his eyes should be, were fixed solely on the Codex Somnus. 27 seconds, the figure spoke, the voice digitally synthesized, devoid of any discernible human accent or emotion. "The window is closing." Vance fired. The shot echoed deafeningly. The figure didn't dodge. He seemed to absorb the impact, a small spark momentarily flaring where the bullet struck his chest plate. He was impossibly armored, impossibly fast. He took one deliberate step toward the book. "The information you seek is not for you, Collector. The code must remain dormant. The sleepers are resting." Elias, acting on pure scholarly instinct rather than courage, reached out and slammed the Codex Somnus shut, locking the opal clasp with a desperate twist of the iron spike. The effect was instantaneous and absolute. The pulsing light in the script vanished. The ozone smell dissipated. The violent energy that had filled the vault collapsed, leaving behind a profound, terrifying vacuum of silence. The armored figure froze, his body rigid. The synthesized voice crackled once, then went silent. He stood motionless for 2 seconds. Then, with a sharp, inhuman turn, he launched himself back into the ventilation shaft and disappeared. Vance lowered her weapon, her breathing ragged. What just happened? He retreated. Why? Elias looked down at the now inert Codex Somnus, its black leather absorbing all light. The Codex Somnus isn't a guide, Agent. It's a switch. We didn't just open a book. We activated a frequency. And when I closed it, I shut down his power source. I believe the people who want this book are not using conventional methods. They are using the architecture of sleep as their weapon. They are dream hunters, and their energy is tied to the book's open state. He looked at Vance, his face grim. We have to leave this vault. If they couldn't take the book while it was open, they will be back when the sun rises. We need to find out who the sleeper is and why they want to control the generator. The story of the Codex Somnus had just begun, and the only way to read the remaining chapters was to stay awake.
The Artifact. Chapter 3. Exit Strategy. In Manhattan. The secondary airlock clicked shut with a deafening thunk, sealing the inner vault, but the safety felt temporary, an illusion. The chaos outside was escalating. NYPD sirens wailed in the distance, but Elias knew those were for a simple break-in. They didn't know the intruder, the collector, was a ghost, a high-tech specter powered by an occult artifact. "This way, Doctor," Vance commanded, already pulling Elias toward a barely visible utility panel hidden behind a 19th-century Egyptian sarcophagus. Her movements were precise, betraying training that went far beyond museum security. "Where are we going?" Elias asked, clutching the Codex Somnus to his chest. The book felt cold now, heavy, and eerily inert. "Not up. They control the public spaces and the usual exits. We're going down. The Met has a forgotten level. Sub-basement 4. It was the original storage for the Cloisters collection before they moved it upstate," Vance explained, typing a rapid sequence into a hidden keypad. "The blueprints are obsolete, the alarm system is dead, and the humidity is atrocious. It's the one place they won't expect us to run to." The panel hissed, revealing a narrow steel staircase descending into absolute darkness. Vance pulled 2 high-powered tactical flashlights from her utility belt. The collector's gear, the armor, was non-kinetic and energy-dampening. I hit him with a standard 9mm hollow point. It was useless. That tech is military-grade, but the speed and sheer indifference to being shot suggests an augmentation that is almost certainly tied to the Codex's open-state energy. As they descended, the air grew thick and heavy, smelling of mold and ancient concrete. Elias found his academic fascination wrestling with his physical fear. "You speak of this as if you've encountered it before, Agent." Vance paused on the landing, her flashlight cutting a clean beam through the gloom. "I'm not a standard DHS agent, Doctor. My unit tracks cultural assets of strategic importance. Things that don't just have market value, but operational value. We're interested in the crossover between black market tech and black magic texts. The Codex is a fusion of both. It's what happens when 21st century cryptography meets 2nd century mysticism." They reached the floor of sub-basement 4. It was a vast, forgotten space, a maze of rusted shelving, crates labeled with fading chalk, and the grotesque silhouettes of partially disassembled medieval statues. The darkness was total.